Hey everyone, I'm Sarah, and I'm here to talk about the use of medical marijuana and the benefits. And I hope to persuade anyone that is feeling negative about it in a positive direction. Um, there's been a lot of new research showing that it is completely safe and even beneficial, so I'm here to talk about that. All right. When people hear the word marijuana, they think of drugs, addicts, and ruined lives. However, marijuana has its very good side. Marijuana has been used to treat many sicknesses affiliated with pain. Most of these diseases are either sorry are those that either make people suffer or make them terminally ill. Examples are glaucoma, arthritis, and cancer. Aside from medical benefits, the plant is also shrouded by physiological myths. Marijuana is not highly addictive, unlike what the widely held belief says. Marijuana users do not come from the hardened criminal class, and there is no direct relationship between the committed crimes and marijuana use. Simply, marijuana does not alter the basic structure of an individual's personality. Solomon, 1966. By historical standards, today's federal ban on possession of marijuana may eventually be viewed as something of an aberration. There is evidence that the intoxicating properties of the cannabis were known to Chinese physicians about 2,000 years ago, and for the first few hundred years after colonies were established on Jamestown and Plymouth Rock, the possession of intoxicants were not forbidden. That began to change about 100 years ago in response to worries about opium addicts. The International Opium Convention was held in 1909, which led to a drug control treaty signed 3 years later by the major nations at the time, including the United States. In 1932, concern about the rising use of marijuana and research linking its use with crime and other social problems created pressure on the federal government to take action. Rather than promoting federal legislation, the Federal Bureau of Narcotics strongly encouraged state governments to accept responsibility for control of the problem by adopting the Uniform State Narcotic Act. Then, in 1937, Congress passed the Marijuana Tax Act. The statute effectively criminalized marijuana, restricting possession of the drug to individuals who paid an excess tax for certain authorized medical and industrial uses. Things started changing in the 1960s when the changing political and cultural climate was reflected in more lenient attitudes towards marijuana. Use of the drug became widespread in the white upper middle class. Reports commissioned by President Kennedy and Johnson found that marijuana use did not induce violence nor lead to the use of heavier drugs. Policy towards marijuana began to involve considerations of treatment as well as criminal penalties. Early in this decade, researchers made notable breakthroughs expanding our current understanding on cannabis. Specifically, they learned how the compounds inside cannabinoids, interact with part of our body called the endocannabinoid system. A complex signaling network that is responsible for performing different tasks in an effort to maintain homeostasis. With these scientific breakthroughs came greater support to make cannabis accessible for those in medical need. While cannabis remained federally illegal under the Controlled Substance Act in 1996, California became the first state to establish medical marijuana legislation, offering a legal cannabis option for the first time in decades. Arizona followed with its own medical marijuana legislation later that year. Before the decade finished, Alaska, Oregon, Washington, and Maine had each passed laws permitting the use of marijuana for medical purposes. Since the first statewide medical marijuana laws went into effect, the number of states adopting cannabis legislation has been steadily growing. Support for marijuana legalization in the U.S. among voters is now at an all-time high, with a recent poll finding that 61% believe adult use marijuana should be legalized, and 94% support the legalization of medical marijuana. That's a lot of people. The growing social acceptance of marijuana and the greater recognition of its medical purposes has made an impact on cannabis policy. Throughout the U.S., the 2016 election was monumental for cannabis as voters in 8 states approved marijuana measures. As of today, 29 states and Washington, D.C. have passed laws legalizing the use of medical marijuana. Attitudes towards cannabis are shifting as credible medical research efforts continue to reveal the plant's exciting therapeutic potential. Ample studies have shown cannabis could be a viable treatment option for alleviating neuropathic pain, nausea, spasms, and for providing anti-inflammatory and healing effects for those with serious conditions like multiple sclerosis, arthritis, inflammatory bowel disease, HIV/AIDS, diabetes, cancer, and spinal cord injuries, and the list goes on. No longer unfairly brushed aside as simply a recreational drug, marijuana and its remedial capabilities continue to be investigated through viable medical studies. Anecdotal accounts abound of patients curing their own cancer using high-potency edible cannabis extracts. Take Dennis Hill, a prostate cancer patient who decided to forego chemotherapy and try cannabis instead. His story of complete recovery after 6 months of cannabis use is available online, along with his medical record and journal of his progress. Or Kelly Hoff, who decided to try cannabis oil in the months leading up to a scheduled surgery to remove a brain tumor. After 8 months of treatment, there was nothing left of her tumor to even remove. These stories are hard to ignore. There is a large body of scientific data which indicates that cannabinoids specifically inhibit cancer cell growth and promotes cancer cell death, explains Dr. David Meiri, the lead researcher on an Israeli project studying 50 varieties of cannabis and its effects on 200 different cancer cells. Meiri and his team has successfully killed brain and breast cancer cells through exposure to cannabis, and they are hopeful they can find more varieties of cancer cells that respond to this treatment. Cannabis clinicians treating epileptic patients in 3 medical marijuana states, California, Washington, and Maine, have reported their findings in a peer-reviewed article that underscores the complex challenges and unique therapeutic potential of cannabis oil concentrates. In this uncontrolled observational study involving 272 patients, some degree of seizure reduction was noted in 86% of cases. 10% experienced complete seizure remission. Of 272 combined patients from Washington State and California, 37 found cannabis ineffective at reducing seizures. 29 experienced a 1 in 25% reduction in seizures. 60 experienced a 26 out of 50% reduction in seizures. 45 experienced a 51 to 75% reduction in seizures. 75 experienced a 76 to 99% reduction in seizures. It sounds like a lot, but what it's saying is that it's working good. Overall adverse effects were mild and infrequent, and beneficial side effects such as increased alertness were reported. The majority of patients used CBD-enriched artisanal formulas, some with the addition of THC and THCA. Economically, medical marijuana has brought nothing but jobs and an abundance of taxes that can be used to better our towns, schools, and hospitals. Better than expected sales of marijuana in Colorado and Washington over the past year have resulted in buoyant tax revenues. In 2015, Colorado collected more than $135 million in taxes and fee on medical and recreational marijuana. Sales in the state totaled over $996 million. Imagine where that money would have gone if we didn't legalize it. Sales in North America grew 30% to $6.7 billion in 2016 and is projected to increase to $20.1 billion by 2021, according to Archview Market Research. Marijuana legalization has afforded so many people the opportunity to get a job. It allows business owners to set up marijuana dispensaries, grow operations, and nurseries. This in turn creates employment openings and income for employees and profits for business owners. This adds more economic benefits to the community. Without marijuana legalization, job opportunities and income would be created by other industries. Thanks to legalization, the field becomes wider and more lucrative for the cannabis industry. In the state of Colorado, where marijuana legalization is the norm, it is said that it is the strongest economic driving force than 90% of other active industries. Marijuana legalization created more than 18,000 full-time employment openings and added approximately $2.4 billion to the economy of the state of Colorado in 2016. With the money being spent by employees inside the cannabis industry and the money that the business owners invest in their dispensaries and crops, weed is generating a lot more wealth and economic activity in states where it is legal. In the state of Nevada, experts believe that making recreational marijuana legal would create more than 41,000 jobs until 2024, and it would generate more than $1.7 million in income within the labor sector. The real money is expected to come from recreational marijuana legalization as more states come on board. Thousands of indirect cannabis jobs will also be created due to legalized marijuana sales in California. I would also like to point out that alcohol and cigarettes are both legal and 100% more dangerous than marijuana ever could be. Many people die from alcohol use every day. Nobody dies from marijuana use. The U.S. Centers of Disease Control and Prevention reports that more than 30,000 annual U.S. deaths are attributed to the health effects of alcohol. This figure does not include accidental deaths, which is a lot. Drinking and driving, people are completely fine when they're driving on marijuana. It's completely different than alcohol. On the other hand, the CDC does not even have a category for deaths caused by the health effects of marijuana. A study published in Scientific Reports in 2015 found that the mortality risk associated with marijuana was approximately 114 times less than that of alcohol. People die from alcohol overdoses. There has never been a fatal overdose of marijuana. Marijuana is one of if not the least toxic drugs, requiring thousands of times the dose one would use to get the desired effect to lead to death. This thousands of times is actually theoretical, since there has never been a case of individual dying. Meanwhile, the CDC attributes more than 1,600 U.S. deaths per year to alcohol poisoning. Alcohol use is linked to cancer. Marijuana helps cancer. Alcohol is associated with a variety of cancers, including esophagus, stomach, colon, lungs, pancreas, liver, and prostate. Marijuana has not been conclusively associated with any form of cancer. In fact, a 2009 study contradicted the longtime government claim that marijuana use is associated with head and neck cancers. It found that marijuana use actually reduced the likelihood of head and neck cancers. If you are concerned about marijuana being associated with lung cancer, you may be interested in the results of the largest case-controlled study ever conducted to investigate the respiratory effects of marijuana smoking and cigarette smoking. Released in 2006, the study conducted by Dr. Donald Tashkin at the University of California at Los Angeles found that marijuana smoking was not associated with an increased risk of developing lung cancer. Surprisingly, the researchers found that people who smoked marijuana actually had lower incidences of cancer compared to non-users of the drug. In conclusion, marijuana is a very useful drug and should be legalized everywhere. Marijuana should no longer be grouped with cocaine or heroin, but with other recreational drugs such as caffeine and tobacco. The legalization of marijuana will help out our economy and create hundreds of jobs for Americans. Based on my research, I have determined the positive outweighs the negatives. Legalizing marijuana has the potential to give our economy a huge boost and could make America strong as ever. It can be used to cure diseases and help with other medical conditions. People are going to use this drug if it is legal or not. Marijuana is the most commonly used illegal drug. I believe marijuana should be legal in all 50 states because people are battling with illnesses and disorders that could potentially lead to serious damage in their lives. It can be used to substitute many things that could help save our environment and air. While many people think marijuana is an unhealthy drug, I believe that it is a way to help society when it is in need. I have to say that I personally do not smoke or partake in marijuana. However, I see the benefits from it and the amazing things it has done for our country, and for me, I believe that more people should consider these benefits. I also have to point out that what I'm trying to persuade people to do here is to look at the facts and vote for it, whether you like to smoke it or not. There are so many people that are benefiting from this that could really use it. So if you guys could just get out there and vote yes when it is time, then there's a lot more states that this could be available to help a lot of people. So thank you for your time. I do want to say this verse, and God said, "Behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for good." Genesis 1:29. Thank you for your time.